Hey everyone, welcome back to day 3. Now, today we flipped things a little bit. I got you guys to work through an activity where you looked at building out your content strategy and taking everything we've covered so far and solidifying it a little bit. Now, it was really interesting for me to read through some of your DMs, your comments on the dedicated post today, and just hear some of the questions, concerns, frustrations, and of course all of the aha moments. You've done a pretty epic job for only being 3 days into this challenge. So I'm really excited to now give you a little bit more feedback, tackle some of the top questions that we had in the Facebook group. And if you're not in there already, definitely jump in. There's so many insightful questions and comments, people applying the activities, that it's a really helpful resource just to go beyond what we're teaching in the lesson itself. So let's dig in. Okay, so stage 1, I asked you to do market research and inspiration to find at least 3 Instagram accounts from your industry that you feel are doing a really good job, 3 brands that have the kind of personality that you want to amplify, and 3 Instagram accounts that showcase the brand values. And the reason I broke it up like this is because it's often really hard to find someone who's doing exactly what we're doing. So by looking for inspiration that targets kind of the what, the why, and the how of what we are hoping to do, it can sometimes be a bit easier. So maybe instead of looking, let's say you're a swimwear brand that one of your core values is body positivity. If you're just looking at other swimwear brands, you'll get some insights. But let's say you expand that and you look at other influencers in the body positivity space. Then you're getting insights into your target audience, into some of the topics that you're going to talk about, maybe content ideas. So looking at it this way can kind of broaden your scope. And I saw that a lot in your comments of kind of aha moments that this activity was really helpful for you. Some of the challenges that you had, I heard this a lot. I can't find any accounts in my industry that feel like a good fit. And what I would say is the solution to this is if you can't find accounts in the similar industry, look for accounts that have a similar audience, even if they're in a different example. So to give you an example, one of the participants of the challenge who runs a kids toy store in Malaysia was having trouble finding accounts that were of a similar caliber, that had similar brand values, that were showcasing the kind of really premium quality. There's a few things I'd look at. One, go beyond Malaysia. Look at other toy stores around the world. And for people who are really nailing that, boutique, high quality, playful space. But 2, you could look beyond other toy brands and look at people in that same industry, but in a different kind of vertical. So, for example, you could look at the toy manufacturers themselves, look at what they're sharing on their Instagrams. Then you could go one step further and look at people who share a similar audience. So let's assume the audience is mothers and fathers looking for products for their kids that are a little bit more of a premium space. Obviously, you would have fleshed that out more in the customer, in understanding your customer in the segmentation challenge that we did yesterday. But maybe you can target mummy bloggers or influencers who are effectively targeting that space. And then what you can pull from that, it's not just content ideas. Obviously, they'll be posting a slightly different content to what you'll be posting. But if you read the captions, if you read the comments on the posts, you can gain more insights into your industry, into what resonates with them, what features they're looking for, what some of the big, most popular products are in that space, and kind of just what content is going to resonate with that audience. So that can be a good fit if you can't find much in your space, look for other people that share your audience instead. Okay, another one. I'm not a brand, I'm growing my personal account, so I don't know how this applies to me. This is one that I hear a lot. People start an Instagram to showcase their daily life, and then they decide that they want to build that into a business. They want to become an influencer, they want to make this into something that they can monetize, but they still feel like it's just a personal account. Or I want to share so many different things that I'm passionate about and I don't know, or I don't know how to, or I don't want to narrow that down. So 2 things I hear most commonly from people growing their personal account. And I can see some of you guys, I can picture watching this and going, that's me. So the problem is you're trying to move from just sharing your life with your friends and family on Instagram to building a personal brand. And this is something that you have to make a conscious decision for. Because if you just continue sharing your daily life the way you're sharing it, the likelihood of you growing successfully as an influencer is slim. It's a competitive space. You're trying to get this share of attention when we already have so many different things that we could look at, pay attention to, so many different accounts we can follow. Why should we follow you? So I think it's a really important step in that journey to let go of the idea that your personal brand has to reflect every aspect of your personality. You don't need to communicate every single side of you, every single thing that you're interested in, every single thing that you do in your personal brand. It's going to be so much easier and so much more effective for you to focus on one consistent niche and grow that. And then as you found your footing, as you know how to communicate with your audience and you're getting some traction, add in other aspects of your personality or things that you want to focus on after. If people come to your page and they don't know what you're about and they don't know what to expect, it's really hard for them to make that decision to focus on. So if you were to think about, 1 to 3 things that you're most passionate about, it's easier to find 50 people that are interested in 1 or 2 things than it is to find people who are interested in 20 different things that you might be interested in. So let go a little bit of the ego, of the feeling like a fraud, feeling like a fake. Often you get a bit of kickback from friends or family who don't really understand this influencer space, and you might get comments of how it's not real anymore, or you're trying too hard, or you used to be like this. And unfortunately, that's just one of the side effects of trying to be innovative, trying to move into this alternative space, trying to build this epic life for yourself. Is in the short term, not everyone is going to understand it. And we've worked with dozens of influencers who have hit that kind of 100K mark, built it into a full-time career. And the one thing that they all had in common is when they were very first starting out, it felt awkward. Building a personal brand and talking about themselves and being really curated in their approach, it felt awkward. They had a bit of imposter syndrome. Some of them felt like a fraud. Some of them had kickback from friends and family. Some of them had, close friends and family members unfollow them, which hurts a lot. But eventually you get through that stage and the people who matter will stick around or will come back. The people who aren't going to support you in this new journey probably aren't people that you necessarily want to have a close relationship with, or don't necessarily matter in this part of your life, in this building an Instagram. So if you're building your personal brand, definitely try to narrow that down. I know how hard it is. I know how easy it is to want to be everything to everyone, but you're going to find it easier to build out a content strategy if you can focus on 1 or 2 aspects, on one consistent niche, and building a really clear brand about that. You want people to be able to say, Tina does this, or Tina is this, and to encapsulate you. And people often don't like that because they feel like I'm too complicated of a person. You can't summarize me in 2 paragraphs. But if they can't summarize your Instagram or who they feel like you are through your Instagram in a couple of paragraphs, it's unlikely that your content is going to resonate strongly enough for them to want to follow or for them to want to share or engage. So as hard as it is, it will be more effective for you. Okay. And then how do I know if I have 2 separate audiences or focuses to my brand, whether I can incorporate that into one account? And I would say we get this a lot. Most people have more than one audience. Often you'll have, especially as an influencer, you'll have the audience of people that's following you and engaging with your content and the audience of people that is paying you. as long as 80% of your content would be relevant to both audiences. And 80% is kind of just a figure that I made up. There's no math behind that. But as long as the majority of the content that you share is relevant to both of those audiences, it doesn't matter if the audience themselves is different. You can hear one of our little rescue puppies barking at someone at the door. If you guys come on retreat, you'll get to meet them both. The next thing is, even if not all of the content resonates super strongly with both audiences, it's normal that some content would resonate more strongly with one person or another. You want to make sure that none of your content is very isolating to one audience or another. So try to, as you're writing out your content, think it through in your head. You've got your avatars, maybe you've got two, you've got Jane and Lucy. What would Jane think about this? What would Lucy think about this? And it's okay if Lucy would be like, yeah, it's cool. And Jane would be like, oh my God, I love this. But if one of them is going to love it and the other one's going to be put off by it or feel excluded by it, or it's really just not going to gel, then it's going to be hard for you to combine those two audiences or focuses into one brand. Hope that helps. We often look at things like this on a very case-by-case basis. It's the reason why so much of our retreat is spent in small groups, and I know it's one of the hard things when you're following along in this challenge is I can't give you a yes or no answer to most questions without sitting down one-on-one and digging into your brand. So hopefully going through some of these case studies and reading each other's examples and answers in the Facebook group helps you to get further insights on how to take these big ideas and apply them on an individual level. Okay, so stage 2 that you guys worked through was the content strategy. So I wanted you to summarize your brand personality that we worked on the day before. You'll see there's a lot of repetition in some of our activities because if you just do something once and then never touch it again, you're unlikely to really get to the deep insights and value. Number 2 was to think of 5 to 10 things that you want your audience to know, feel, or believe about your business or brand. And for those of you that were struggling with this from a personal perspective, that could be things like, you know, Tina's really relatable. Tina's really knowledgeable about the world. Tina shares great tips about how to travel on a budget. Tina cares about inclusivity and would never judge me for showing off my bod in a bikini. So they apply just as importantly whether you're a personal brand or whether you've already got an established business. And then what are 3 to 5 things that your audience is interested in that you could share that aren't directly self-promotional? Now this is especially important to businesses because most of the content businesses post is self-promotional, but even for influencers, thinking about not just sharing what you want to share, what is so valuable and relevant and interesting to your audience that you could add value for them. So let's look at some examples of this and some tips. One thing I want you to remember is the most important factor to growing your Instagram is providing value to your audience. And I loved reading some of the aha moments in yesterday's lesson where you said, oh my God, I actually realized that my content is really boring. Or, oh my God, I realized that I've just been posting what I want to post without actually spending time thinking about whether or not my audience is interested in it. And that's a huge part of the shift from just posting whatever you feel like to being really strategic in your approach to Instagram is to thinking through what is my brand, who is my target audience, what am I trying to communicate, and is this content ticking those boxes? Am I providing something relevant, valuable, interesting, engaging to my audience? These are some examples of client projects that we're working on at the moment. So we've got 2 different brands here. We've got Zenwa, which is a clothing brand, and we've got Alex Hosick Collections, which is a jewelry brand. And for both of them, what we're trying to do is really communicate a clear personality to the brand. We know for Zenwa that the audience is interested in kind of luxury, adventure, resort feel, travel. We know for Alex Hosick, we want people who are connecting with the history of the brand. So her jewelry is inspired by Egyptian artifacts. We want people to come to the page and to instantly get this feeling of of wonder and awe, to have a feel for the brand. And when you come to it, it doesn't feel like an ad. It doesn't feel like one big sales page where it's like, buy my product, buy my product, buy my product. Half of the photos on this feed have no direct mention to her brand. They're not self-promotional. They're not saying, look at the pyramids of Egypt, buy our product. Look at this pretty beach, buy our product. Because as a consumer, you can fatigue from that pretty quickly and you are driving your audience to unfollow. Whereas if you can post something that is beautiful and inspiring and interesting that people actually want in their feed, then they're likely to stick it out and not mind so much when you are posting some things that are self-promotional. It's also helpful to get a better feel for the brand. If you don't have the budget to go and do epic photo shoots all over the world, you can still showcase some of those aspects of your brand personality or brand values by resharing featured content. So not all of these photos were taken by us. All of the brand photos were ours, but about half of the kind of inspo shots are other people's photos that we've reshared, credited appropriately, mentioned them in the caption. So it gives you kind of a broader library of content that you can share. And this alternating formula, where give or take every second image is a featured or reshared or inspiration photo, can work really effectively for brands. Instagram is not a place for you to spam people with ads for your business or for people to follow your uncurated everyday life. That's the main mistake that I see people making. They're just posting what they want to post. They're thinking about what they want to communicate and not paying attention to what their audience was. So put this on your wall, pin it above your mirror, make it a reminder to yourself if you feel like you struggle with this, and always keep coming back to this question of, is my audience actually interested in this, or is this just what I want to tell them or show them? And if you were a consumer, would you actually be interested enough in this content that you go to someone's bio and you click follow? Not just that you see it and you're like, oh yeah, I'll give that a like, it's okay. But is it interesting enough? Is it curated enough? Is it engaging enough that you want to go to their feed and click follow and see more content like that? That's what you're trying to achieve with every piece of content that you create. And it's always a balancing act between what you want to communicate and what's interesting and valuable to your audience, especially as a brand. Brands go, I want people to know this, and this. But if it's too self-promotional, you just tend to get a lot of unfollows and not a lot of traction. This is especially important if you want people to follow you long-term, not just have a quick browse. So we mentioned, I think in day 1, that for some people, their Instagram account isn't really about growing long-term followers. And for them, it's maybe a little bit less important because they don't have to be coming up with something new every single day necessarily, because their audience isn't following them long term. They're just browsing them, looking through, and then deciding whether they want to purchase. So for a lot of cafes, especially in tourist areas, maybe less important. But for brands that want to build that ongoing relationship with customers, for influencers who want people to continue following them over the long term, super important. And it's always better to give value and to show rather than tell, to build relationships and to earn trust. Now, to give an example, you guys are all part of this free challenge right now. What are we doing with this free challenge? One, we were really inspired when we ran our giveaway, reading everybody's stories, and we always try to practice what we preach. And part of what our goal is to give everybody the opportunity to build a life on their terms that they're passionate about. So it's a very values-driven thing for us. We wanted people who perhaps couldn't afford to do the boot camp or hadn't made it a priority yet to still have access to some of our insights and skills. But also in terms of a marketing effort, what are we accomplishing through this challenge? If I were to say to you, I'm a great teacher, we teach good skills, you should learn from us, not so compelling. If I show you through actually giving value, through giving away hours of my time in this challenge unpaid, that does so much more to build a connection with you guys, to show you what we're all about, to build brand awareness. A lot of you heard about us for the first time through one of these challenges or giveaways. And when you practice what you preach, when you don't just say, hey, we teach valuable, tangible digital skills, or we make even the most complex concepts beginner friendly. It's one thing to say that, it's another thing to do that. So anytime in your brand you can show rather than tell, you can put in that extra effort, give away as much value as you can, that's only going to come back to you in the long run. Stage 3, content mapping. This is the fun part. So for every point that we listed above, then we brainstorm the actual pieces of content to target each point above. So here's some examples from you guys. Sorcha, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, and Matt from Sorcha and Matt's Grand Adventure. Their brand personality is brutally honest with heaps of genuine vulnerability, one couple's journey as they fail forward through life and business. I love that. I love that so much. And this is a little snippet of their feed so far. Now, 5 to 10 things they wanted their audience to know. Don't worry, we also know we suck at stuff. We're working on it. It's okay to fuck up a lot. This is a safe place for you to share your failures, fears, dreams. Believing you can do it is 90% of the battle. And this couple is actually making their dreams come true. If they can do it, so can I. Now, that is the things that they want to communicate. And following on from the point I just made, the best way for them to do it is going to be not just saying those same sentences again and again, but actually showing it. So instead of saying, don't worry, we suck at stuff, telling real, vulnerable, authentic stories of the mistakes that they make and the challenges that they have. One of my highest performing posts of all time on Instagram is a post that started with, this morning I lay on the bathroom floor crying, feeling so overwhelmed with imposter syndrome that I just didn't know where to begin. And I shared some honest, vulnerable stories about how no matter how successful you get from the outside, there's still moments where imposter syndrome hits you hard, where you question whether you have what it takes. And it's a scary thing to post because a lot of my audience are potential clients. And there's a part of you that goes, if I share this, they're going to think that I have no idea what I'm doing. They're going to think that I don't have my shit together, that I'm going to be too busy crying to make it through their work. And those are all genuine fears to have. But I just had to trust that if I wanted to showcase vulnerable, relatable content, if that's who I wanted to be in my life and in my personal brand, to trust that all the other content I share, where I'm showing my expertise and showing my talents and skills, would balance out against the vulnerability and would build more connection with people. And not only did I get more likes and comments than anything else I've ever posted, I built real connections with my audience as people reached out and said, hey, that was so powerful to share. Here's all of the ways that I've struggled. I didn't know that other people felt this way, and we built a real connection. So looking at these 5 to 10 points and thinking, what opportunities do I have to share that? And then 3 to 5 things their audience is interested in. So these guys have done a coding bootcamp, another one, not IOC, and they're using their software development skills to travel the world. So some of the things that they thought they could share, how to determine if a software development bootcamp is legit, worth it, how we chose the camp we chose. Brilliant, so valuable. A lot of their audience could potentially be interested in this. It's something where they are leveraging their skills and experience to add value. How we got started, so the process of quitting our jobs and lives and starting new ones. People often love how-to kind of content. How to optimize your website for SEO with Google's new algorithm in less than 2 hours. So ways that they can add value, attract that target audience that's maybe interested in being a digital nomad, potentially set themselves up for brand partnerships in the future. So if their audience is already used to them giving advice on how to choose these things and how to start this life, that opens them up to future brand partnerships for businesses in that space. So I think that was brilliant. Good work, guys. And then we've got Alexis. So Have Curves Will Travel, a fun-loving travel page with honest, relatable content about traveling as a plus-size woman. And if you haven't seen that spelling of woman before, it's a gender diverse, inclusive term that includes transgender women. So other some of the content that Alexis thought she could share. Other plus-size travel influencers and everyday plus-size travelers. Brilliant. If you're really trying to build a brand around, I think her tagline is Fat Girl Traveling the World, then showcasing other people in that space, probably through your stories more than your feed, unless you're meeting them in person, is brilliant. Sharing companies that empower plus-size women. Again, it's something that your audience is genuinely interested in, and it's setting you up for future brand partnerships. If you're already sharing the kinds of brands that you love now, before you're big enough to start landing brand partnerships, when you do get to that point and you start introducing that sponsored content to your audience, it's already going to feel super natural to them. Doing interviews with organizations that are bringing plus-size bodies to the mainstream market. Putting effort into your content, adding significant value, doing something that maybe stands out from just other plus-size bodies on Instagram that have a personal account to really establish yourself as an influencer. I love this content strategy, and I'm really excited to see how that translates to your feed over the next couple of weeks. Okay, another case study. Gourmet Market by Pepito. So we live in Bali. We're running a creative agency here alongside the boot camps that we run at Institute of Code. And we have been hired by Pepito, which is the biggest supermarket brand in Bali, to help launch the social media for Gourmet Market, which is their new gourmet supermarket. So a bit more Australian style. It's got a gourmet deli section. You can have food and drinks on site. You can pick anything from the cold section and they'll cook it for you. So really trying to attract that slightly premium market, lots of expats, etc. So we went through this exact process for Gourmet Market. And the first thing we did was look for inspiration. We looked not just at other supermarket brands, but when we looked at supermarket brands, what we found were there was a lot of really unappealing feeds that didn't tend to be getting great results. And then there was feeds that were really, really powerful, but probably had gigantic budgets, bigger than this Bali company had. And a lot of the characteristics of the target audience of an expat-focused supermarket in Bali are different to the characteristics of, say, Australian consumers. Some of the things we're trying to accomplish with Gourmet Market is that a lot of people who first move to Bali, they don't know what they can buy at the supermarket. Some of their recipes from home won't translate. It's different brands. People are maybe questioning the quality of some of the ingredients and how fresh things are. You're trying to attract people away from eating out because it's so cheap and easy to go to restaurants. How do we encourage more people to think about shopping at home and to see how much value and how high quality this supermarket is? So we came up with 8 core content pillars, 8 kind of categories of content that we would share. So simple, easy recipes. You guys can hit pause on this if you want and look through the text. Unboxed products, so taking the products that we had, getting them out of the box, doing a cool flat lay with them, really showcasing the quality. Showing the products with their ingredients. So it just gives a bit more visual appeal. If we were just to put a white product, a product on a white background, it feels like an ad. If we're to do a flat lay like this one here, where we've got some of their fresh juices with a flat lay of watermelon, that's maybe a bit more interesting and engaging. Prepared dishes. A lot of people want simple meals they can cook at home. So taking some of their freezer food or their packaged food and then cooking it and taking photos. Store photos to show the interior, in-store product shots, artistic store photos, and fresh ingredients. And we came up with this strategy from looking in depth at who the target customer was, what they're looking for, what they care about, what we need them to know, think, believe, or feel about the supermarket in order to shop more often, to buy more products there, to tell their friends about it, etc. And then what that audience actually wants to see. And it's a balancing act between those two things. So we said above, it's always a balancing act between what you want to communicate and what's interesting and valuable to your audience. And the sweet spot is when you manage to do both at the same time. It's easier for some brands than it is for others. Some brands, you're just balancing, here's something more self-promotional, here's some things that are more valuable, and jumping between. But when you can hit both at the same time, amazing. So here's an example of one of our posts. So we take this beautiful finished photo of a recipe. In this case, it was like a salmon and asparagus dish. So that's the end photo that you see in the feed. And then it's a carousel. And we actually show all of the steps to making the product in that carousel and give people a digital shopping list so they can go in store. Now, the audience loves it because it's interesting and useful, and people love looking at food porn. The brand loves it because it's giving them a virtual shopping list and encouraging people to associate simple gourmet meals with that supermarket. And especially for somewhere like Bali, where it's not always the same ingredients that you would have back home. Some of the recipes, people are going, oh, okay, cool. My cookbooks from home don't really apply anymore because some of the ingredients and availability of products is different. Here's how I can make meals that are simple and delicious and fresh, and just giving you that inspiration to carry your phone into the store and buy what's on that digital shopping list. So this has been really effective for us so far. The brand's really excited about it. We're only about 1 month in, so if you want to go have a follow, you can take a look. All right, Jen somewhere. Jen is one of our IOC alumni. She took the social media bootcamp about, I want to say, a year and a half ago, and she's on track to hit 30,000 followers. So you guys should go give her a follow, see if you can help kick her over to 30K. Jen is killing it, and I wanted to show you some of the things that I think she's doing really, really well as a personal brand to grow that, since we had so many questions about that. So when you come to her feed, what do you notice? Straight away, I can see that I've got a really curated feeling. I know that she's an influencer. I can see what she's about. I can see the quality of content. Someone's just come to the door. I can see the quality of content is consistent. And if I'm someone considering following her, that's super important to me. Her photos are beautiful and curated, but they still feel authentic and relatable. Her captions, go and have a look and have a read of them. I think it's some of the most... There's our chorus of puppies. There's people coming to the door. Emilio! Her captions are, I'm just recording this from my living room. Her captions are consistent, engaging, interesting. Her content is relatable, but feels natural at the same time. You can feel her personality shining through her photos, her captions, her stories. You instantly get a gut feeling about who she is and what she's about when you look at her bio and her feed. And all of that encourages you to follow along. Sorry for that brief interruption. So definitely go and have a look at her, read through some of her captions. What I think you'll find interesting is, obviously she'll talk about different things and has a different niche to you, but there's a lot you can learn from how she structures her captions, how engaging her content is, how she takes, everyday places and makes them feel beautiful, but at the same time, it doesn't feel out of touch. They're not so heavily staged that it's hard to picture yourself there and in her shoes. So definitely go and have a look at Jen. And that's our lucky last one. Awesome, guys. So we're going to leave that as our video for today, which means we're actually going to extend this from a 7-day challenge to an 8-day challenge, and you just get one bonus day to work through everything. Feel free to jump back onto the same post and give any other insights, aha moments, feedback, questions, and I will jump on there later today and answer them.